Welcome, coffee enthusiasts, to Brewing for Equity, the podcast brought to you by the Coffee Coalition for Racial Equity. Join us as we embark on a flavorful journey through the world of coffee, exploring every nuance and perspective through the eyes of Black and Brown people in the industry. This podcast is a space dedicated to amplifying the voices and experiences of those who contribute to the rich tapestry of the coffee world. We are committed to building a racially diverse and equitable coffee industry. So let's brew conversations, share ideas, and foster a community centered around the love of coffee.
Welcome, everyone, to the Coffee Coalition for Racial Equity, Brewing and Equity, our podcast. I'm Phyllis Johnson, the founder of the CCRE, and I am honored to get a chance to take over the podcast for the next couple of months. And today I have someone that I'm really excited to talk to, Pastor Kyev P. Tatum Sr. And just a little bit of background, I'll tell you how we kind of met or got a chance to connect. A shout out to the Specialty Coffee Association, who allowed us a booth at the event at Expo in Chicago just recently. And I think it was, the young man's name is Eric Brenner. He stopped by our booth to talk about Pastor Tatum and what he was doing. And Eric is the assistant director at the Center for Coffee Research and Education at Texas A&M. I call them the other CCRE. And I've known them for a very long time to work on international projects in coffee, one that I was involved in, which was the Pearl Project in Rwanda that Texas A&M led. And as he was talking to me, I saw his lips moving, but I'm thinking, why is he talking about underserved and Black communities in America? This is an institution that I know focus their work in coffee producing countries outside the country. So I said, okay, yeah, whatever, I'll talk to you, whatever you want to, yeah. So few weeks later, we kind of reconnected and Pastor Tatum surfaced. So Pastor Tatum, I want you to just give us your background. Tell us what brought you to this work. Your bio is amazing. The work that you have done, you know, you're a pastor, your church is, you're the pastor of New Mount Rose in Fort Worth, Texas. Your accolades and what you've done is very humbling. All of that will be a part of your bio, will be provided in links. But tell us, how did you get to this work? What was it that led you to an institution like Texas A&M to ask for community work?
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. I tell you what, I was excited when you asked, and I was even more excited trying to get here this morning to make sure I was set up for this conversation. I appreciate you and the work you're doing internationally and even here in America. But, you know, if I tell you, just serving the Lord led me to A&M. And I've been a part of the A&M system since '84. I played football at one of their sister institutions, Tarleton State University. You know, just an inner city kid trying to get out of poverty, abject poverty, and football was my way out. I had big hands and I ran pretty fast, so I could catch a football, and they let me in. I was not prepared academically and otherwise, but I was, you know, trying to get away from the trauma of the inner city. And so it was my blessing, and they accepted me in, and I became a part of the family. Fast forward 40 years, having spent, you know, an adult lifetime working with them in many capacities, even when I was working with other institutions in the Austin, San Antonio area, right in between in San Marcos. I spent about 15 years down there. But A&M system has always been my go-to. And even when I came back to Fort Worth in 2004 and ended up coming here to pastor New Mount Rose in 2018, you know, I saw they had this open land And I thought, well, we need to do a garden. And I reached out to Texas A&M Agriculture Extension. And so they became a part of creating the 4-H Club and the Buffalo Soldier 4-H Club, mind you. And we've been trying to stimulate, Black kids' interest, not only in history, but in the history of the land and how the land can play a critical role in both their healing and their wealth. I say their health and their wealth, if we can get to that point. But this last episode, in terms of how we got to the Center for Coffee Research and Education, was we were doing major, and I mean major distributions of food, PPEs, vaccinations. We even were able to secure some monoclonal antibody infusions, and we did those. Only church in Texas that was able to do that. So we did about $12 to $15 million in distribution, meaning getting products out to the general public, Black, brown, people in abject poverty and otherwise. And it was an incredible experience for me and for our church, because at the same time, our church went under the flood of 2021. So we had an entire restoration project going on right in the middle of the pandemic. But God is faithful. But in that pandemic of doing all of that distributions, we did not receive one penny of COVID money, of pandemic funds to do all of that work. And throughout that work, I was getting frustrated because our city was being discriminatory, our county was being discriminatory against Black churches, and we were the main source of distribution, at least 100 plus that I was working with, state. But the feds were sending us the product, and people wondered, how did this little Black church get all these products? And they told us, because you will give them out. You will not stockpile them like our cities and counties are doing. Wow. You'll make sure the people get those. And boy, I tell you, that was an experience. But to go through that experience in the inner city without receiving any kind of financial support locally or state or federally, I figured that, hey, we're going to have to find some other way, because not only were we not able to secure any funds, just imagine the people we're serving. So we saw an economic depression in the inner city prior to the pandemic, during the pandemic, and especially after the pandemic. But right in the middle of the pandemic here, I'm racking my brain. What can we do to stimulate the economy? What can we do to get people, making a living so that they can become self-sufficient, being able to sustain themselves as they should be able to do? But we see the generational poverty. We see all of that wrapped up right in these inner cities. In fact, the zip code, which I was born in, grew up in, and now pastor in, has the lowest life expectancy in all of Texas. Oh, gosh. At 67 years, with Black males at 64. And here's an irony. I heard you speak about Rwanda. At 64, Black males have the lowest life expectancy, equivalent to the life expectancy in Rwanda. So that's right here in the inner city. So one night I was scrolling, I think either my Facebook or my Twitter or one of my accounts, because I'm big into social media. And I saw Eric giving this, PSA about their center, about the work they're doing in international cities, how they're taking people who were losing their coffee farms due to this rust worm, and that they were going into those countries and creating these new hybrids that were able to take these once beans that were dying to the rust worm to now to the level of specialty coffee. And it struck me, the whole concept struck me, because in my mind, Texas A&M is a state of Texas institution and should be concerned about the issues in Texas. But here they were in international countries creating this phenomenal system, of helping coffee farmers, rethink how they grow beans, and was helping them to increase their profit from maybe say $1 to $5 with the new bean, which would reduce the migration in theory of people leaving these countries coming to America. So I got that whole just phenomenal model. I love it. Great. Hey, hoorah. But in my mind, I'm thinking, this is just the old Pope preacher boy in me, from inner city. If they could help them in international countries stimulate their economy and become self-sufficient, then they should be able to help us in the inner city stimulate our economy and become self-sufficient. And I thought, well, if they have the beans, we have the businesses. Right here in America, right here in Fort Worth. Fort Worth is the 13th largest economy in America.
Wow.
Texas is the 8th largest economy in the world.
Oh, wow.
So we got this business, right? But we don't have this expertise, and we don't have this sophistication. We don't have the knowledge base. But I do know we have access to the markets.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We can gain access to the market once we're trained, once we're educated, once we're developed. And so I just, being who I am, I called them up. And I said, who's in charge of this gig? Let me talk to the head man in charge, a woman, whoever it is. And first I got Eric. And, Eric, not being from here, but could understand clearly what I was talking about in theory.
Right.
And he said, let me run it up the chain. And then he got Dr. Rogers involved, Norman Rogers, who is a phenomenal professor in this space. I don't know if you've had the chance to meet him, but he has an incredible book on the value chain of specialty coffee. You may want to try to look that up. He gave me a copy, and, I am not the academic. Amen. I have ADHD. I just said, no, I get bored easy. Amen.
I hear you. I struggle with the same thing.
So, but it's like, how do we take this book and, break it down, put it in film or theory or something so that we could understand the full value of this value chain? Because they were liking this, this young Black guy from Texas is talking about how do we stimulate the inner city economy? And the one question I asked both Eric and Dr. Rogers, as well as Ambassador Boss, I said, can specialty coffee stimulate the inner city and help people in abject poverty create an economic stream for self-sufficiency? And all three of them said, yes, it can. I said, so then that's all I needed to hear. And so from that time in 2001, I went straight and created the Inner City Coffee Exchange, because we needed a structure to operate under. And then our church, I've been introducing it to our church. We got 15,000 square foot of incredible space at the church. And now we have my mother's, my childhood home, my mother's home back in our possession. And we're working on the Prayer Room Coffee House as the main training, education, and development residential complex. From an old 100-year-old home that we've gutted pretty much, and we're going to redesign it into a state-of-the-art, first of its kind of specialty coffee program for inner city kids.
Wow, wow. So there's a lot there, and I have to say, I've seen coffee do a lot of things, and to help countries pull back from things like a genocide. We were talking about Rwanda, to boost the economy in East Africa and Latin America. And as you said, the work that Texas A&M was doing that directly benefited the U.S. in slowing down the immigration and the immigration challenges. I tell you, Pastor Tatum, if coffee can do what you are proposing that it can do, I am a full-fledged believer that it is the wonder, magical, mystical product that God gave us that it definitely connects us to each other. But to bring light in communities where there's darkness in America is pretty amazing. And I too believe that it has that power. It has the power to inspire. It has the power to create curiosity in those who touch the product. So it's amazing to see you digging deeply into this work. Now, this was 2001 when you organized, so you've been at this a while. Wow.
Oh yeah, it's not, as you know, it's not an overnight success. You know, you have to do the legwork. You have to do, you know, the whole process of understanding. And you know what is really beautiful? I love children. I fell in love with children in 1990. Anytime before 1990, I tell you, get them away from me. I don't want to deal with them. But somehow the Lord touched me in 1990. So somehow I've been dealing with students either in college, high school, middle school, all the way down, up or down. I have this incredible relationship with young people. But as I was going through this, I'm thinking, you know, people, grown-ups initially, you know, how do we get them? But, you know, their minds are already set. And, you know, we are real big on charity. Mm-hmm. We're not real big on self-sufficiency.
Right.
You know what I mean? We have all these programs that are charity-based, right? You have to meet this charity guideline. And if you meet this guideline, then we can help you. But if you don't meet this guideline, then we can't help you. That's charity. But when you talk self-sufficiency, says, we see you where you are, and we're going to show you how you can get to where you can become self-sufficient. So they could see the steps it takes to become self-sufficient.
Yes.
Name me 10 programs in America that shows poor people how to get out of poverty.
Yeah,
it's just not there.
It makes me think of the verse or the saying, you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. You teach a man to fish, you give him
feed him for a lifetime. Yeah. Well, in the Bible, you know, it's when that man was begging Peter and John when they were going up to pray. That third time they went up, they was out of money. They said, look, man, silver and gold have we not, but that which we have, we give to thee. In the name of Jesus, rise up and walk. Mm-hmm. Amen. Because the power is within. First, you change the mind, you change the heart, and you empower the people. And so that's what this has to be. The issue was, does the industry, I mean, not just the industry, but can the economy mm-hmm. be stimulated? Someone's drive and someone's connectivity to do it. And that's what I was wondering and listening for them, you know, to them for. Yeah. And I mean, they say, yes, it can. And here's where they came in and was the pushback they gave me. And everyone deserves the opportunity to be self-sufficient.
Wow. Yeah.
And so that really sparked me. And so I've been going. I think we are ahead of our time. Mm. And so we have to be patient with the rest of the world.
Well, I think you're ahead of your time in your idea. The work, like you say, the work is just going to take some time. And that's hard for us who can see a future in something and you want it to happen. It's hard to scale it back and to go through the processes that are necessary to get to success. But once you get there, and I'm sure you've had some successes so far, you know, for us to be connected is a level of success. For, you know, I've seen all the coverage that you've gotten has been a you know, success, but still there's a longer way to go. And I'd like for you to talk a little bit about the location. The location, you know, in the coffee, when it comes to coffee, when it comes to gentrifying, some of the communities that you talk about, the coffee shop is oftentimes like the first sign that a neighborhood is changing. And then there's, the purchasing of the land, the houses, and you see the space that you're talking about, the childhood home that you grew up in. What is that area like? And does it have the potential to either serve the people who are already there or the folks that are coming in there?
Yeah, it's both. I'm hoping, because some of them that are there, I've known all their lives.
Okay.
I mean, this is the next generation. So they knew me back when I was catching footballs, and running around and things. So, but this is like me coming home to
Mhm.
do, and I share with them in the neighborhood. And it is becoming a gentrified neighborhood. No doubt about it. My mom, who paid $25,000 for her home in 1976, the home next door, which was built maybe 2-3 years ago, maybe 2001, I don't know, it's worth $350,000.
Okay.
And so the infield is definitely ramping up. So, and it took my mother's house from 25,000 to now 179,000.
Okay.
And so that's how we lost the house. My brothers, couldn't afford to pay it or didn't know how to protest it or whatever. And then, it went to the courthouse steps. But fortunately, I was able to secure it back. But you see the shifting of the community.
Mhm.
So the goal is first to keep that house a landmark house, right? Make sure that home, it's 100 years old, and it needs to be there another 100 years. But just like my mom back when we were growing up, it was the house of redemption. People came to her for second chances.
Mhm.
I cannot remember how many young pregnant women came to our house, or women, single mom with children, that my mother was helping in some role, some fashion through our life. And she was always looking for young people to pull out the talent that was in them. So when I was approached by the Youth Offender Reentry Program, YORP,
Okay.
about needing a place to stay because those kids are coming out and home is not a welcoming place and those things. So we were initially talking about just creating some space, some room for them to come out and live. And then, I've never just really thought normal. And I thought, let's not just be a transitional home. Let's make this a transformational place where not only can they live here, they can learn the art, the science, and the business of specialty coffee. We know that it could stimulate the economy. We know it could transform people's lives, but what can it do for youth?
Mhm.
And right as we were going into that space, focusing in on youth, is when I read the report that, internationally, there is a shortage of young people in the coffee industry. And so there's a real big push for youth in coffee, or for people to invest in youth in coffee. So I say, hello, somebody. We are right on point and on track. And that's when the Lord just started, we found favor in that story that was done. We haven't paid for 1
Mhm.
ounce of support today. Everything that's been done up to this point has been mission minded.
Yeah.
And people have done it because they either felt my heart or saw the vision, or, felt sorry for me and them kids or whatever. But but then all of a sudden, it was like we ran out of money, to do things, and then everything disappeared. So we've been at a standstill for the last month and a half, which tells me clearly, I need to go raise $1 million. That's all that means, using what the Lord has given me to go raise some money. So I'm going to try to hit the road as much as I can to share our story in order to stimulate people's minds to help us do what we're trying to do.
Right. It's an interesting point. When you grabbed a coattail of Texas A&M, they were pretty much just, doing work. But as you said, there's a lot of very specified work in coffee when it comes to, let's look at young producers, because as a buyer of coffee, as a coffee consuming country, the largest coffee consuming country based on volume, is so important to the U.S. to be able to continue to sustain the supply of coffee. So our focus too is on building youth who want to work in coffee in the next generation in the producing countries. But I think that if there's anyone who can take some of that flashlight and put it on home, is probably going to be you. And I think that if there's some way to share that flashlight, because people connect with people who are like them, right? To be able to develop youth programs in the producing country, as well as youth programs in the U.S., there's helping to both uplift is a phenomenal and doable thing. We just have to have the will to want to. And that's what CCRE is about. When you and I had our first conversation, you said something interesting in that you had a background in civil rights, the rights of people, the social rights of people, social and religious rights of people. But now you're working on silver rights, SILVER, which requires the empowerment part, the empowerment with resources and financial resources to build your own life, the things that you've talked about with Texas A&M. And that gets really difficult, all of it is difficult, but at the CCRE, there are some things that we too are looking at that inspires us. Our mission is to help to place more Black Americans into the coffee supply chain throughout. There are jobs that extend beyond what we see in coffee, and it's opening up the gate. It's opening up that pathway. And for the longest, I told you I'd worked in coffee for 25 years. And I use this term gatekeepers, and I hear the youth talking about, if I work in retail, there's so many gates that won't allow. There's so many times I can't go further than being at the barista level. I can't get into management. I can't learn about importing. I can't move into some of these other international or entrepreneurial opportunities. But I'd like to not see Black Americans coming to coffee as a gate-kept sort of industry. I would really like to see us come to it with a big, huge, beautiful, colorful door of opportunities for us to open. And for us, we need to have the partnerships. We need to have the relationships, because I've been in this space long enough, and I'm sure you understand this as well, that you have to go together in this work. The first coffee company that became a national coffee company was started in 1850. 1850. That was hundreds of years ago, right? Well, over 100 years ago. And for us to not have, for me not to be able to point to a prominent Black American in coffee, and not just in coffee, but in many industries, it's an indictment on us. It's an indictment on us as a country, a space where we who have a percentage, have stake, have invested, not just in this country, but Blacks in Latin America and all over the world have invested in an industry through work, through knowledge. To not have a mention, I always say, outside of Kaldi, the Ethiopian goat herder, who is also thought to be folklore, I'm hard pressed to think of another Black prominent person, or definitely a Black American in coffee. And that's because we have to write that history. We have to engage in the work. We have to engage in sustained work. Some of the encouraging news that's coming out about the consumption of Black Americans is that is increasing. Our consumption level is increasing by 10 percentage points over the last 4 years. And so I'm very thankful to see those numbers, because I'm hopeful that it will inspire entrepreneurship, and it will inspire opportunities like you're building. The thing about coffee for us, for Black and brown folks who come to coffee, I haven't seen the official research on it. I love research and reading stuff, and I have ADHD, but I really like academics. But I understand what you're saying. It's hard to focus, and I'm self-prescribing. I must say that.
Yes, yes.
But we don't just do stuff. We bring the whole community along. You can't forget about the fact that, you were this little boy, as you said, with big hands who could run fast. And that physicality and mental strength got you to a different level. And you're just looking for the next Pastor Tatum. And you're always reaching back. And that's what investments in organizations like ours, the CCRE, as well as your organization, is that those dollars are just multiplied, because you're building the community, you're building opportunity. And so that's why I get excited about investments for our work, because I know it's going to be multiplied. It's going to expand. It's going to give ripple effects around the world to come. So I'm excited for you. I'm excited for the work you have done. Just in the conversation that we've had, many of the things, it's been a long journey for one person to hold a dream and to hold it when others come and go and let go, and they're excited and then they let go of it. I know a little some about that. But I went to a play last night to see The Preacher's Wife, and they closed the play in Atlanta saying help is on the way, singing help is on the way. And I thought that's a good message for both of us, that help
Amen.
is on the way, right? I hope you get a
Amen.
chance to see it one day. It is an
Yes.
incredible performance.
Wow.
I digress. You had talked about the house that your mother bought, and how that house is the space that you want this business, this opportunity, and not just business, but you want it to be a learning, a healing place.
Mm-hmm.
And coffee has been known to, for folks who have different challenges, working with it from a roasting or, scientific or sensory level, offers some sort of healing. So I think that there are a lot of synergies. And the thing about specialty coffee, I will say, is that we have a generous industry. The folks who enter specialty coffee, they're oftentimes creative, and they want better for the world. So as you think about the next steps, getting on the road, asking for the resources that are necessary to move this project forward, do you have, other than just the resources that are needed, can you think of other things the industry can offer you, or the things that you might need that the industry has that would help propel you?
Yeah. So part of this, I love the whole sense of mutuality. How do we help each other? As you were talking about it, I was thinking about the project we created. It came to us. It's really interesting. We created the same gram, different ground project. And a young man came to me needing help in court. He was going to court, and I said, show me your papers. And he showed me his papers. And on his paperwork, it had, arrested for 400 grams of this and 300 grams of this. It was just this whole litany of things. I said, man, he said, Pastor Kyev, you told me no judging. I said, I'm not judging you. I'm thinking, if you can do this with grams of cocaine, you can do grams with coffee. It's the same gram, it's just a different grind. And that stuck. He thought, man, this got some meaning to it. So when he grabbed it, he had to have been like a kingpin or something, selling that much, getting caught not once, but like 5 or 6 times. I didn't ask about all that. I was just thinking about his mental capacity.
Yeah.
They have the skill set.
Right.
They just don't have the access.
Right.
They don't have access to training. They don't have access to education or economics, and they don't have access to development. They don't have that set up. So that's what this whole project is about, setting up a training, education, and development center in the heart of the inner city and asking the question, can we take these same kids who are in abject poverty, who are trying to get out of poverty the best way they know how, and give them a product that's internationally stimulating to the entire world? And can they learn what they need to learn to figure out what is this whole entire, especially coffee industry about, and get out the projects and not have to get their heads beat up running a football?
Right.
They can figure it out. And part of this project, and this is just the Lord working, divine connection. I got a call from the United States Department of Commerce Office for Faith-Based asking me to quarterback this initiative they had to try to open up access to commerce to underrepresented communities. And I was just thinking, man, if that ain't the Lord giving me access to this,
right.
At the same time, we're trying to give people access to coffee.
Right.
So as always, we try to make the dots connect. And it's an extraordinary God-given vision, no doubt about it. And I believe this, and you have to believe it because you wouldn't have been in coffee this long. If God gives the vision, he'll provide the provisions. We just have to find them, like you say. It's on the way. It's around the corner, but we have to keep working until.
Yeah. I grew up in the Baptist church, and I remember just being so
Come on.
being so frustrated as a young adult, my husband and I starting this business that we knew nothing about, green coffee importing, a really, hidden space of the business. And I had to do a presentation to some of the sisters in the church and older mothers in the church. And as I did the presentation, they gave me a little advice. One lady said, you're gonna be sorry you wore those shoes one day. And the other lady said to me, God will never lead you where he's not going to keep you.
Yeah.
And it just pierced my heart, because in that moment, I knew that I was having challenges, that I didn't understand this thing that I was trying to do. And not many people around me that were close to me understood it. But I felt if I were protected and kept in my decision making and understanding where wisdom comes from, it was all of those initial thoughts and meditations. And then I remember one night I was very frustrated, and I picked up my Bible and I'm like, I'm just gonna read a verse, and I've always heard people say, it just falls to the verse that you need. I can't remember the exact verse, but the verse read, the just sporadic random verse that fell open onto my Bible had something to do with those who labored required the largest part of the effort. And here I was trying to work in an industry where I was working with poor farmers, and they were the ones receiving the least amount and continuing to struggle. And it is all those little moments. If I had an opportunity to offer some words of encouragement to a pastor whose day job and night job is to do that, is that there's always these opportunities when you're ready to give up, that something just comes up and gives you just enough energy to keep pushing it forward. And that's been happening for you since 2001. So congratulations. Congratulations.
Well,
you are.
This interview, I mean, I was at one of those moments because, the door's been shut. We've been wondering, figuring out how we're going to go to the next step. Of course, you have been a part of that discussion with not only the Center for Coffee, but also the positive youth development experts, Dr. Andrea, bringing her in. And that's what this whole thing means at the end of the day. Everyone involved, whether it's internationally or in the inner city, Do you have a desire to create positive youth development opportunities where kids can grow up in an industry loving to get up every morning and doing this work? It's not going to be easy. It's going to be some late nights. It's going to be some disappointments. But I always compare life to a ball game. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, sometimes you get knocked down, but you have to get up and dust yourself off and keep playing the game. And so when you invited me to come on here, I was like, yes. I mean, thank you for the chance to share our story, because as we continue to share our story, it's, as you said, we are connecting with those who have like minds and like hearts.
Right. Yes. So first of all, second of all, thank you so much for your time. It's always an honor to just sit and have a conversation with you. You're very focused on doing hard work that many of us turn away from. And you somehow, based on who you are, can look squarely in the face of it and walk into it and come out successful. So thank you for building greater communities for all of us, because we all benefit from better communities. Thank you for that work. And if there's anything that I can do in my role here at CCRE and business or whatever to help make those connections for you, I've told you that I'm willing to do that. Would you share how folks can connect to you or connect or support the work you're doing, or just reach out in some way, please?
Absolutely. So I want to leave you with a little wisdom. Last night we did Bible study, and it was Philippians 2.
Okay.
And it's about mindset.
Mm-hmm.
That's what in making our business mindset line up with the scriptural mindset or spiritual mindset. And it's right there in that second chapter of Philippians. And so he's talking about, let this mind be in you that is also in Christ Jesus. And he gives you the layout in terms of how our attitude should be and how our work ethic should be. And that's what we want to be able to share, that this is not, separate from or, bigger or lower than. It's in the book. It's in the book. Right. So what you're doing is in the book, but we have to get to that point that while we're looking out for ourselves, we have to also look out for others. And that the joy comes really when you're looking out for others. I mean, it is tedious work, but I don't call it HARD work. I call it HEART work. Right. Because hard work pays off, right? Yes. So when we do this from the heart, and that's what keeps me, whether we're doing this or Food Bowl. But you can find us at newmountrose.com. That's the easiest way. www.newmountrose.com. Mm-hmm. That's the website for the church. And my number, of course, is 817-966-7625. And my email is kptatum1@gmail.com. So we need help. I mean, we have to get this done. I don't have a clue what I'm supposed to do, but I know who's in charge, and he keeps sending me down this right path, with this divine connections, this divine protection, and this divine direction. It's led me to you. So what we do with this, only the Lord knows.
Well, Pastor Tatum, I know there are 3 opportunities for meetings that are happening in Texas next year. The Specialty Coffee Association is not in Fort Worth, it's going to be in Houston. And the National Coffee Association Conference is going to be in Houston. So I probably will be at both of them, and I would love an opportunity to meet you there and to let you actually get a firsthand knowledge and to vision of how big coffee really is. And then there's like the Black Farmer, some event is happening in Houston later this year that I'll send you that information on as well. But yeah, there's a way to get there. Amen. And CCRE is a small, struggling, organization, but I feel like, you said it is hard work. and we get there together. We get there uplifting each other. So again, thank you for your time. I know you have another call you need to get on. Have a blessed day.
Thank you so much. Bless you.
All right. Thank you. Thanks everyone for listening. Thank you to everyone who took the time to join in today to listen to the conversation on Brewing for Equity. We want to thank our guest, Pastor Tatum, for his dedication to community and to discuss the project that he's working on to help build the Black inner city community with coffee. And yes, I believe it's possible. And I know that he does too. So continue to do good work out there. And thank you for joining us. Thank you for your support to the Coffee Coalition for Racial Equity.